The second major strategic matter that must be addressed and mastered is that Barbados has to find a way to grow and to develop itself out of its current difficulties and to find new instruments and the best means by which to make such growth and development sustainable. We must grow this economy. On recent evidence, these are the matters on which this government is most clueless and most backward. Contrary to Chris Singer's assertion, on current course and following current policies, there will be no spurt of growth for Barbados this year, and the outlook for the year to come is equally bleak. Can this country be put back on a growth path? And are there policies and programs available to us to get there? The answer to both of these questions is yes. Realistically, we must first be clear as to where the growth can be made to come from, and the policies and the programs and new initiatives that must be put in place to induce growth and development. First, our growth and development must be driven by the sustained, the coherent, and the concerted development of our tourism and our international business sectors. These are, however, the areas where the greatest mistakes are being made by this government. Barbados' growth and development cannot be just be based on the growth of tourism arrivals per se, but on tourism development of a certain kind. We are a society with a $9 billion economy in which the government spends $2.5 billion in revenues to meet its current expenses. In such an economy, only a certain kind of tourism industry, one will suffice. One that is selling a premium product at premium prices. Any sustained attempt, as is happening now, to market Barbados as a low-budget, heavily discounted tourism destination will lead to the acceleration of adverse developments that are already taking place. Major tourism enterprises such as Amman Beach will continue to record heavy losses and will decline. And we will continue to get the appearance of an increase in tourist arrival with what really matters, an increase in the revenue from the industry. To stop this, three things must be made to happen. Barbados must focus on the development of its core tourism business in the lucrative markets that have been of great value to us, rather than placing emphasis on penetrating new markets which hold little promise of yielding major financial returns. Under this government, our tourism industry, like many, has unfortunately gone to Brazil. Secondly, the BTA must have first claim on government's financial resources to market Barbados, as the institutional and legislative changes called for by the private sector to strengthen the sector's performance must be fully executed. On this matter, all that needs to be said is that in a year when the government is finding the means to pay for political football tournaments, the BTA that must market our tourism has been deprived of financial resources and has been made to go to the NAS for funds to support its operation. What a mismatch of priorities. Third, if Barbados is to make its living selling a top quality tourism product at premium prices, then capital investments must continue to be made to our tourism products and attractions capable of enabling us to fetch such premium prices. A Labour Party administration up to 2008 supported such a tourism product development program that involved the transformation of Bridgetown into a world-class heritage site, the transformation of Spikestone St. Lawrence Flat, the impressive transformation of the Harrison's Cave, expenditures on new attractions such as the George Washington House and the Museum of Parliament, new beaches, new boardwalks along the South Coast and Spikestown, and the encouragement of top quality restaurants and other facilities by way of incentives under the tourism development. We extended incentives for new retirement villages to be created in Barbados and to add significantly to the employment and foreign exchange generation of this country. For tourism to thrive, we need similar incentives from this government. There has been a lot of talk, but no action. Earlier, I called attention to the fact that some 2,700 jobs and $1 billion in investment and income that could have been generated by our international business and financial industry were lost to Barbados because of governmental inertia and incompetence. We are also losing business and will continue to lose ground in this sector that must drive our growth if the harsh immigration policies and other restrictive business practices against persons from abroad wanting to do business here are maintained in the way in which this government is now maintained. In addition, any realistic growth and development strategy for Barbados must be based on a clear appreciation of the forces and factors which generate growth in today's global economic crisis. There was a time, colleagues, which has passed, when industries in Barbados could under international trade rules be created and supported by the use of protectionist devices such as import licenses and quotas. Such an approach is no longer possible. In the past, our economic growth and development was made possible by trade preferences that gave us one-way duty-free access to the markets of the world. Beginning this year with the Economic Partnership Agreement with Europe, such one-way duty-free trade preferences which facilitate activity in this country has come to an end. A lot of Barbados' development was also spurred in the fact that we used to enjoy, and you must hear this, Barbados used to enjoy, the only country in the Caribbean, used to enjoy a tax benefit with Canada that allowed that other Caribbean countries did not have. Canadian companies located here sent back their profits to Canada free of taxes. No other Caribbean country had this advantage. In consequence, Barbados became the location for $40 billion of Canadian investment, third only the Canadian investment in the United Kingdom and the United States of America. We were the place in the world. We're the third largest concentration of Canadian investment because of one thing mostly, a unique tax benefit. But that unique tax benefit is not unique no more. Other Caribbean countries now have it. And some companies, one of which I refer, are now leaving, going to other competing destinations, which now have the tax-exempt surplus concessions that only Barbados used to have. In the absence of protectionist measures, trade preferences, and unique tax benefits, how will we encourage business to be established here? And how will we encourage business to want to stay there? We are left with no other choice than to establish an environment within which business can be undertaken that is more business-friendly, more cost-effective, and which is technologically superior than that which our immediate competitors can offer. In addition, as the size of the government shrinks to correct the fiscal deficit, our economy can only grow if the private sector grows by more than the corresponding rate than the fall in government activity in order to compensate. And these can be achieved by a number of initiatives. First, we must no longer accept half measures, and we must move to remove all of the restrictions that have been foisted on the private sector business activity in this country. The World Bank publishes each year a survey of business conditions across the countries of the world. The most successful economies are those that have the best business conditions, and those that have established benchmarks of best practice that have taken and worked to improve the circumstances by reporting the progress in reaching new standards of efficiency. Singapore is one of the best economies in the world because according to the World Bank survey, it has the best business conditions. Barbados, however, is now one of the few countries whose conditions for doing business are not reported in this global survey. The last report on Barbados was in 2006. We therefore do not know where we stand on the matter that will now most profoundly affect the prospects for growth and development in our country. There is a need for some extraordinary economic leadership. A new BLP administration will therefore establish an agency for business facilitation in the Prime Minister's office to oversee and coordinate the removal of constraints on doing business in this country. And we will ensure that the conditions for doing business in Barbados match the very best in the world. We will also establish a development council within the office of the Prime Minister, bringing the best minds of the country together to ensure that we are no longer left behind by reason of our inability or our refusal to grasp developmental opportunities. In the climate in which we will have to operate, we must move rapidly to diversify the private economy, especially in areas where clear policy and program frameworks have already been set up. Leading up to 2008, we laid out developmental frameworks for the development of Barbados as a green economy, on our oil and non-traditional energy resources, on the restoration of the Scotland district, and on the development of our service economies. These are clearly defined opportunities for growth, diversification, and development that have been allowed to lie fallow while the Barbados economy has drifted and has struggled. We will ensure the full implementation of these major initiatives as important sources of the sustainable private sector growth and development that will help to restore and redevelop Barbados. In pursuit of a strategy for greater private sector-driven growth and development, a new Barbados administration will treat the households of Barbados as our partners in development. The drastic and punitive reduction in the purchasing power of Barbadians that has been caused by the disastrous energy policies of the BLP and its treatment of tax allowances have to be reversed. In our economy, 60% of activity is driven by local demand. Once our foreign exchange reserves are healthy enough as they are, some element of increased domestic spending must be a factor in generating growth. The restoration of allowances will help immediately. We also feel that as soon as practicable, a new tax rate, as set out in our manifesto, should be introduced so that persons earning $80,000 or less should have to pay tax at no more than 25% of their income. We can, we must, and we will. In addition, there can be no place in Barbados' development for the crude application of wage increases as any solution to our problems. People must be partners with the government in the development of this country, and measures to induce higher productivity from the Barbadian labor force must be an essential part of our way forward. We do not need and will not support a continuation of the present wage freeze from 2 to 4 years. We call upon the government to implement not a wage freeze, but an incomes policy that enables some element of wage increase for the vulnerable at the bottom, and which introduces performance and productivity-based increases for those who are contributing to the development of our country. These things we can do, we must do, and we will do. The third strategic matter that we must deal with is to take steps to ensure that the development of our country takes place in an environment of peace, stability, and good order. Barbados has always enjoyed the reputation of being a tranquil place where Barbadians and visitors alike are able to go about their daily activity without fear of molestation. This great party has played a pivotal role in ensuring that this reputation is not lost by ensuring that our law enforcement agencies will provide with the tools that they needed. We brought to this country cutting-edge developments in policing technology, improving the terms and the conditions of work. We also modernized the Coast Guard so that they too can function effectively in the fight against crime. We have been able to hold our heads high in the region and in the developing world. We were not able to complete our agenda. For example, in our last manifesto, we committed to lowering the retirement age for police officers to bring it more in line with the retirement age for members of the Barbados Defence Force. By contrast, the BLP promised our police officers duty-free cars that I yet to see. But now, we are in danger of losing these hard-fought gains. When we say that Barbadians are feeling under siege, it is not to gloat at the failures and missteps of this administration, or to gloat at the continued turmoil in the now politicized Barbados police force. As a political party of over 70 years existence, we understand only too well our solemn duty to stand in the breach for all Barbadians, our duty to speak up when our country is approaching a pitfall that others within our region has not been able to avoid. We speak up to put the government on notice that Barbadians are not prepared to endure an existence where gunshots are ringing out daily in our communities. Right. We will not endure an existence where we are not safe in our homes, where houses are broken into every 4 hours, an existence where the criminal element is emboldened to the point where the most heinous murders are now being committed on the innocent, the young, and the vulnerable. The kind of instability that we are witnessing every day will undermine our economic recovery and put our already threatened social development in peril. In this fight, we must be the victors. From the wave of criminal activity that threatens our well-being and our economic and social stability, Barbados must be rescued and restored. We can, we must, and we will. The fourth strategic matter that must be addressed and harmoniously resolved is to ensure that any matter of a major financial nature that can adversely affect the functioning of institutions and the welfare of our people is dealt with decisively and with justice for all. CLICO and the settlement of the CLICO fiasco that it represents present a major challenge that must be met head-on if Barbados is to enjoy a harmonious future. The Barbados Labour Party cannot and must not let this matter fade from public view, as those in the BLP with their pals would want it to do. The party owes a duty to the citizens of Barbados and those who put their hard-earned savings in Pt4 and who now find themselves at the risk of losing everything to fight on their behalf until every penny invested by our citizens in Pt4 is returned to both countries. This policy has been left pending for too long. Too many poor people, including pensioners and small investors, are hurting and cannot get on with their lives because of a clear sense of direction as to what is to happen to them. Two matters, in our judgment, need to be settled. The first is that right must be done for those who invested in this company in accordance with the assurances given by persons qualified to speak on behalf of the government. The second is that justice must be done and seem to be done, pal or no pal. On the first matter, the judicial manager recommendations in his report is that at best people will get back 60 cents for each dollar in their investment, at worst 40 cents. The report leaves open the possibility that government can top up these amounts if it wishes. Two prime ministers, a minister of finance, and the governor of the Central Bank of Barbados have gone on record in public as stating that the investors in Pt4 will get back all of their money. These statements by these persons holding high office and political positions of public trust have excited reasonable expectations on the part of those who have waited patiently on this matter to be resolved. A clear statement of reaffirmation is needed by government that it will go beyond the recommendations of the judicial manager's report to confirm that investors will not get back 60 cents or 49 cents, but will get back the full 100% as promised. Secondly, there is the matter of the pursuit of justice. After months of agitation by concerned policyholders and persons holding annuities, a judicial manager was appointed by the High Court on April 14, 2011 to consider the options for the restructuring of the operation of Pt4 Life Insurance Company. During this work, the judicial manager reported that of $802 million of assets on the company's books, documentation could only be found for $512 million. Thus, there are some assets totaling close to $300 million that either could not be found or might be in some other entity or country. Thus, the judicial manager has sought and has received the court's approval to commission a forensic audit to investigate the intercompany amounts on the balance sheet of Pt4 International Life Insurance Company. I must tell you that this limited approach is baffling to me as much as it must be baffling to you. Pt4, a company according to Thompson, whose operations were sound, prudently managed and well regulated, cannot now say what has happened to $300 million in assets. The question here is, why has the judicial manager requested such a limited forensic audit? Surely all aspects of the company's operations, its policies, its methodologies, its management, and its board of directors should be the focus of any forensic audit. The question that should be posed is this: should we allow any wrongdoing that caused this company to collapse in a way that individuals put their money in and at maturity dates cannot get them back, be allowed to go unpunished? We say no. We as members of this responsible party must raise our voice in unison and tell Stewart and Sinclair and Worry that we will not rest until those responsible for the mess that is RICO are investigated, and if found guilty, are to be sent to St. Philip to sit side by side with lesser mortals whose actions fail by comparison. They must change their fine Italian suits for suits of blue denim. I close my remarks to you today in the same spirit and on the same note on which I started. Barbados requires yet again another extraordinary effort from the Barbados Labour Party for our nation to succeed. But this can only come from the United Team BLP. I am now into 28 years of representative politics. And over that period, I have drawn my inspiration only from the best that the BLP has to offer. That best has been the example of Bernard St. John, who has always there to serve in whatever capacity the party or the country wished him to serve, without rancor or without causing divisions in our institution. I do not believe in factions. I had a government for almost 14 years and entertained no factions in my cabinet or in the parliament. I led the party for 14 years, during which these annual conferences were like party picnics, free of tensions and rivalry. This party has had to go on without Randy Adams, his son Tom, and me. At some stage, it will have to go on without me. In the middle of a third term, I told a famous meeting of our parliamentary group that it felt that the party had constructively to address the matter of my successor. The party was shot down on the grounds, the proposal was shot down on the grounds that I would be a traitor to the party if I did not want to continue to lead it. I am here not because I have ruthlessly sought power at all costs for its own sake. I am here in the mode and in the spirit of Bernard St. John to serve the party and the country in such a capacity as they wish. At some stage, the matter of the orderly succession in this party will have to be addressed. It will have to be addressed not through any meeting between me and any rival, for I am not in any rivalry with anybody in this party or anything. It will have to be addressed by a constructive meeting and a constructive engagement between those who will be here after I am gone to carry on the great service and the great traditions of this great party. I genuinely hope that such a constructive engagement can take place, and that it will be inspired by the immortal words of St. Paul to the Philippians, with which I leave you today. Finally, my brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think